Hey guys, tonight we're crawling into the soot-stained shoes of a Burgundian peasant from the year 1347. Picture this: your fingernails are packed with clay-rich soil, your nostrils thick with wood smoke, and the tang of last night's cabbage. Before we begin, honest question: could you survive a single day in this world? No antibiotics, no Uber Eats, no climate control. Didn't think so. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. Let's see where in the world people still know how to endure. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. First light stains the eastern sky like watered wine spilling across linen. You shift on your straw-stuffed pallet. Each movement crackles with the sound of dried rushes, protesting beneath thin woolen blankets. The hearth dominates your hut's single room, a soot-blackened mouth that devours 3/4 of your yearly wood supply. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants preferred sleeping near fires for warmth or pest control. Your bare feet meet dirt floors cold enough to sting. Frost patterns bloom on the clay-packed walls like skeletal ferns. That wooden spoon handle fits your calluses like an old lover's hand, each groove worn smooth by 3 generations of hunger. Dawn's pallid fingers probe through wall cracks. Dust motes swirl where light and shadow wage their daily war. You hunch over the hearth's last ember, cupping breath over coals gone gray as a dead man's gums. One vigorous exhale too many, and you'll scatter the precious spark. Medieval dental hygiene didn't cover bronchitis. The ember pulses, a single ruby eye in the ashes. Your lips purse, air flows steady as a blacksmith's bellows. Heat flares, tiny flames lick at last night's kindling. Smoke stings your eyes. Those 12th century tears won't season the pottage, but feel free to pretend. Outside, the village cock crows 4 times before remembering his job. By now you're wrist deep in the flour bin, fingers sifting for weevils like some grim pantry archaeologist. Each moth-eaten grain gets scrutinized. Toss the blackened ones. Keep the merely speckled. Your gut churns. Those foraging manuals never mention how hunger makes morality flexible. The fires awake now, crackling through birch bark like a nobleman crunching honeyed almonds. Your iron pot hangs heavy on its hook, patina so thick you could scratch your name into the side. 3 stones form your cooking tripod, the same arrangement excavated from Viking Age sites across Scandinavia. Not that you'd know, the furthest you've traveled is St. Jean de Lasne's annual flea market. Water comes from yesterday's rain barrel. A greenish slick swirls on the surface. You skim it with your smallest wooden bowl, the one carved from elm, not oak. Someone once told you elm repels demons. Might explain why this vessel's your only unchipped dish. The liquid glugs into the pot, cold enough to make the iron hiss. Now the stirring begins. That spoon cutting circles through water, thick with sediment. Clockwise, always clockwise, folklore claims, counterwise stirring, invites discordant spirits. Modern experts think it prevented scorching in unevenly heated cauldrons. Your arm moves on muscle memory, each rotation punctuated by joints popping like greenwood in the fire. A handful of barley spills from its hiding place beneath the bed. Last week's rations saved from your husband's thirsty trade negotiations. The grains plop into the water, 18 plinks echoing off walls hung with dried nettles. You count them twice, not out of diligence, but because famine makes mathematicians of us all. Hunger gnaws, a sharper truth than any blade. Your stomach growls a harmony with the simmering pot. Across Europe, pottage sustained millions, thick gruel laced with whatever didn't eat you first. Tonight's version features gray barley, questionable water, and resignation. Bon appetit. The fire pops. A burst of sparks ascends L-I-K-E, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, aiming for the thatch. You glance at the roof, half expecting flames, always expecting flames. No wonder insurance hasn't been invented yet. Sunlight crests the roofline now. Your shadow stretches across the floor like a famine victim. Somewhere, a goat bleats, probably the one that ate your best apron last Michaelmas. You'll get revenge via cheese one day. Steam rises, first lazy tendrils, soon boiling into frantic curls. The pot clangs its iron aria, half dinner bell, half funeral dirge. Blisters rise on your palm, landmarks mapping hours spent chained to this ritual. Breathe in wood smoke and damp wool, the sour tang of unwashed centuries. Breathe out another stir, another wish buried in the swirl. Maybe today's the day they invent forks. A fly drowns in the pottage. You fish it out with piety's precision. Protein is protein when Lent never ends. Saints forgive you, but hunger writes its own gospels. Your youngest coughs in the corner. That wet rattle says winter's not done hunting. 3 children buried, 2 still breathing. You stir faster, as if speed could outpace fate. The hearth's warmth feels thinner each morning, like God's grace stretched over too many supplicants. Smoke sting eyes again, or maybe it's the onion you're not crying over. Scholars note medieval peasants ate 2 pounds of bread daily. They never specify how much sawdust it contained. The spoon scrapes bottom, a metallic screech that sets your teeth on edge. Pottage thickens moment by moment. Less water and more evidence of human compromise. Historians love debating whether these iron pots leached nutrients or just flavored meals with blood. Wind howls through door cracks, playing the hut like a bone flute. You pull your shawl tighter, threadbare wool versus a continent's winter. Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen. A shout echoes across the yard. Old man, Leon's pigs broke containment again. The rich get bacon. You get to dream of acorn mash in swine bellies. Midday light bleaches the scene now. Your shadow shrinks into a puddle at your feet. The pottage bubbles, each bursting globule a miniature scream. You'll name this batch Resignation Stew, if naming meals didn't waste precious breath. 2 more stirs. 3. The spoon stands upright for a heartbeat before toppling. Thick enough to stop a dagger, thin enough to drown in perfection, if perfection tasted of defeat. The bowl waits, chipped rim grinning like a village simpleton. You'll let it cool just enough to avoid losing skin, another luxury they don't advertise in illuminated manuscripts. Outside, snow resumes, each flake a silent creditor collecting on autumn's debts. Tonight you'll dream of Byzantine spice markets, cloves and cinnamon stacked in fragrant pyramids. Tomorrow brings the same pot, the same spoon, the same ember's resurrection. Your fingers uncurl from the spoon, the handle's ghost lingers in your palm. Dawn's work done, the hearth exhales its ashen breath over your fragile dominion. Somewhere a dog barks, or maybe it's just the wind. Hard to tell anymore. Morning nips your cheeks like a disapproving grandmother. You plunge chapped hands into frozen earth. The leeks resist at first, then surrender with a sharp crackle. 12 gnarled roots huddle in your palm, an army of brittle white soldiers. Your burlap sack breathes dust when you stuff them in this year's harvest smells like regret. Experts think turnip storage pits dotted every third Burgundian croft, but your cellar's just a hole behind the dung heap. Turns out frost improves their sweetness. Who knew Mother Nature loved passive-aggressive gifts? You count the knobby treasures again. 12 for today's pottage. 3 hidden in your apron's secret pouch. Saving seeds feels like cheating time, burying tomorrow's meal, while today's belly groans. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants preferred turnips over parsnips. Try surviving February on boiled roots and see how poetic you feel. A shriveled refugee escapes the sack. You debate eating it raw. Its bitter skin puckers your tongue. Congratulations. You found winter's least romantic chapstick. The field stretches bare, except for stubborn snow patches, nature's bald spots mocking your efforts. Remember those Egyptian kings entombed with golden vegetables. Your turnips might outlast them in this permafrost. Your thumbnail cracks, peeling a leak, salty blood beads mix with icy sap. The sack's burlap threads snag your fraying sleeve. Even fabric judges your poverty now. By the time you finish, fingers ache like they've been clenching snowballs. But the pot waits, hungry and indifferent as a lord's tax collector. You pause at the cabbage patch's skeletal remains. Frost-bit leaves cling to stalks like old gossip. 3 worms writhe in the thawing mud, protein's last-minute audition for the stew. Back in your hut, the fire coughs. It missed you almost as much as the fleas did. That burlap sack now looks suspiciously lean. Did it shrink? Or did your hopes swell? A lone turnip rolls under the stool. Future generations will sing ballads of its escape. You scrape dirt from its wrinkles, turns out grime, adds texture to desperation. Funny how hunger makes philosophers of us all, Sint. Augustine probably just needed a decent meal. The knife blade catches the weak light for a heartbeat. It almost looks silver. Leeks surrender their layers like grudging apologies. Each ring whispers of summer's lost green arrogance. Your pottage pot leers from the hearth, its mouth wide enough to swallow stars. You toss in the first turnip. It sinks without ceremony, like a disgraced knight. Steam rises, carrying the ghost of last year's harvest in its coils. Wind whistles through the hut's gaps your breath, and the broth's steam become twins. Some say beggars burned turnip skins for warmth. Your calloused palms confirm it's not worth the effort. 3 seeds nestle in your apron fold, tiny brown promises against the coming thaw. You press them deep into the pouch. May they dream of softer soil. The last leek slips into the pot, its journey from ice to fire complete. Your spoon stirs counterclockwise, just to spite those sun-worshipping stirring rules. A bubble bursts, spraying your wrist with the insult of heat. Outside, the frost tightens its grip inside. The pottage pretends it's a feast. You lick sap from your cracked thumb, earth and iron, and the faintest sting of hope. That burlap sack lies limp now, a shed snakeskin of what winter demanded. But the fire hums, the pot murmurs, and somewhere 3 seeds wait. Your boots crunch frozen mud. The well's shadow stretches toward you like a bony finger. Iron chains bite your palms as you crank. Each rusted link groans a protest. Historians note Burgundy's villages, shared wells within 9 paces of every hovel, though shared often meant kicking neighbors' buckets at dawn. The pail plunges. A distant splash ripples up stone walls. You wait, then haul. 2 dead frogs bob in the water, nature's garnish for today's broth. They're bulging. Eyes mirror yours, twin portraits of resignation. Your thumbnail snags a splinter from the crank. Blood beads dark as oak gall ink. A local crone once claimed frog spawn could predict harvests, though swallowing tadpoles just gave her explosive diarrhea. The water swirls, blurring your reflection into a stranger's face, someone younger, less hungry. You blink hard, the illusion shatters. Wind fingers your collar as you peer downward. Beeswax candles once lit this well shaft, some lord's whim during the great stink of 1184. Now moss crawls over slick stones, drinking what your tongue won't. The chain jerks, your grip slips. 73 ruts notch the crank handle. 73 years of thirst. Someone carved initials inside the bucket. J.T. loves M.O., their romance fossilized in chipped iron. You wonder if they starved together, or if M.O. married a man with a deeper well. The water sloshes, testing the pail's bottom. One slow leak draws a glistening line through frost. Your breath fogs the surface for a heartbeat. The water looks milky. Medieval doctors prescribed well steam for melancholic vapors. Too bad it can't cure empty larders. Historians still argue whether well covers were theft deterrents or witchcraft shields. Right now, you'd kill for either. Ice glazes the bucket's rim. You chip it with a trembling fingernail. The shard melts on your tongue, dirt-flavored oblivion. That's 3 mouthfuls stolen before the trek home. Twilight bruises the sky as you shuffle back. The water slaps the pail's sides, a wet metronome counting your steps. 5 hens cluck at your approach, their beaks snap at phantom grains. You dump the frogs, smooth lie to yourself about straining later. The hut's warmth hits like a drunk's embrace. Firelight swims in the bucket, turns well water into molten bronze. You pour slowly, watching liquid silt settle like cursed glitter. Through the murk, Cleopatra's face once floated, or so claims a parchment you'll never read. Her pearl-dissolving trick won't work here, unless pearls taste like frog rot. The ladle dips your pot, gulps the offering. Steam leaps up, carrying secrets from underground rivers. Your spoon circles, stirring in minerals, frog ghosts, the iron tang of survival. The well's gift boils louder now, a grudging participant in this dance. You siphon a cupful, claiming it's to test seasoning. Lukewarm lies have never tasted so metallic. Outside, stars prick the freezing dark, each one mocking your reflection in the emptied pail. J, T, and M, hover in the iron's curves, still thirsty, still waiting. You kick the bucket. It rings like a cracked bell, winter's answer to prayer. The clay jar rasps against the shelf, its lid stuck fast with decades of salt crust. You chip at the seal, a task requiring more patience than a cat watching a mouse hole. Gray powder spills across your knuckles, each granule glinting like cheap armor in the firelight. 5 generations of fingers have dipped here. Yours tremble like a drunk bard's lute hand. Your mother's ghost leans over your shoulder. You'd know that vinegar and thyme sent anywhere. Not too much, it'll weep in the boil, she murmurs. Her calloused thumb presses yours, guiding the pinch. 2 shakes, 3 stop. Museum exhibits call this peasant wisdom. You call it not pissing off dead ancestors. The salt hisses into the pot, a sound like dying serpents. Back in Marseille, traders once hawked this stuff by the amphora, 20 coins a pound. Your share crept north in a merchant's boot heel, 1 stolen handful at a time. The jar's rim chips under your nail, another relic sacrificed to tonight's hunger. Someone scratched a cross inside the lid, warding off salt demons or spilled broth. Local lore claims unguarded seasoning attracts love spirits, though your love life smells more of boiled turnips than roses. A scrap of vellum in Avignon's archives insists salt circles repelled plague demons, but also attracted amorous field mice. The spoon swirls counterclockwise, stirring up grit from the well and ghosts from your ribs. Your little brother's face surfaces in the steam, 7 years old, and still craving his magic pebble soup. Historians still argue whether Burgundian peasants traded turnips for salt or just stole it. Some say tax collectors' carts sprouted leeks every spring. Funny how that works. A crust forms on the ladle. You scrape it with a blackened thumbnail. 5 heartbeats too late, the taste floods your tongue. Memories rise. Mother salting path-weary slugs for supper. Father trading his best knife for a thimble of briny sand. 9th century ledgers rank salt higher than saffron here, though your pottage ranks it higher than hope. Wind sneaks through the thatch. It steals a grain from your wrist. You flick the rest into the fire. Blue flames snap like undignified burps. Medieval midwives prescribed salted ash for womb fog. Not that you'll ever need that recipe. The hearth stones sweat, each droplet tracing a map of vanished salt roads. Your pinky darts out, stealing another taste. 5 licks make a sacrament, 6 make a sin. The broth bites back, crusty bread could soften the blow. But your last loaf went to the Lord's hounds weeks ago. A moldy crust hides in the rafters, emergency rations, for when the pot runs as dry as your prayers. The jar's shadow stretches, a distorted giant on the mold-speckled wall. You count the remaining grains, 17, 18. Math blurs when your gut gnaws its own spine. Scholars parsed a 13th century jingle about salt taxes. But you've parsed the sour tilt of empty bowls. Knees crack as you rise, the jar clutched like a sickly infant. 3 steps to the storage nook, 3 heartbeats to hide it from your own future desperation. Salted dreams taunt you, a kingdom where every well flows brackish gold, and no one counts granules. The ladle drips, each drop etching a tiny crater in the dirt floor. A fly buzzes the pot, its wings dusted with what you swear is Saxon sea salt. You let it feast. Even thieves deserve their tribute. Darkness thickens, the fire shrinks into coals. Your mother's words loop like a mule grinding grain. Not too much, not too much, not the spoon slips, your elbow jostles the jar. 7 grains cascade, 7 tiny betrayals. You curse, swear, apologize to the salt demons. Outside, the wind howls a Frankish lullaby, somewhere past frozen fields and boarded up mines. The sea churns salt into the blood of better-fed strangers. You sip tainted steam and forge kingdoms in your head, where every subject gets a pinch, and every mother keeps her spoon. Cold steel teeth bite through twine. The shears rust flakes onto your thighs like poisoned snow. Barley spills across the table, each grain, a tiny desert island surrounded by sticky woodgrain seas. 16th century harvest records claim 10 bushels fed a family through winter. Your burlap hoard wouldn't stuff a sparrow. The first handful clatters into the pot, angry hail on a tin roof. You wonder if Charlemagne's pastry chefs ever cursed barley's stubbornness. Probably not. Palace kitchens favored wheat. Your ancestors got the grain that fights back. A 14th century decree banned nobles from wasting good rye on peasants, as if moldy barley were some lavish treat. 3 stones rattle in the sack's corner. Your thumb rubs their smoothed edges. Gran claimed they absorbed bad luck, though she died coughing up barley dust. Archaeologists found similar charm stones in Norman midden heaps, still debating if they aided digestion or morale. Your empty gut votes digestion. pot slurps up the grains, its iron belly growling louder than yours. Firewood crackles like a crispy saint on a pyre. You stir faster, clockwise, to please the hearth spirits, counter to spite the tax collector. A 1,123 monastery text scolds cooks for impatient flames ruining God's barley. Guess, even monks lost their cool. Mushrooms bloom on your knuckle, old scars from last year's thrashing. You flick a grain at the fire. It pops like a miniature siege engine. Historians still argue whether barley doubled as currency, but you've certainly paid in blood for it. A Moldovan folktale says unwashed barley whispers plague remedies. Yours just smells like mud and regret. Steam curls into a bishop's hat shape. You half expect a lecture on gluttony. Your sleeve mops sweat. The fabric comes away stained bronze. 16th century dye makers prized barley ash for yellow pigment, a fact that explains your always pissed-looking laundry. The spoon handle blisters your palm. You switch hands like a novice juggler. 5 stirs per breath, the rhythm they beat into you at the communal kitchen. That red-haired baker swore barley could sense fear, judging by tonight's gummy texture. She wasn't wrong. A grain lodges under your thumbnail. You suck it free with a vulgar smack. Tastes like dirt-cheap communion wafers. Forgotten kingdoms rose and fell on this crap. Rome's legions marched on barley gruel. Not that it saved them from dysentery. Distant church bells gag on the wind, their song thinner than broth. You count each peal. 13, 14. Time dissolves when staring into a simmering abyss. A Burgundian chronicle mentions barley-fueled clock mechanisms, probably invented by some over-caffeinated monk avoiding vespers. The shears glint accusingly, their mismatched blades held together by spider silk and spite. You snap at empty air, practice for when the grain merchant's son comes sniffing. Grandmother's ghost scolds. Tools deserve respect. Then again, she married 3 times, so maybe skip her advice. Firelight dances on the broth, each bubble a fleeting golden coin. You hum a tavern song about ale barley's drunk cousin while skimming scum. A scraggly potato surfaces, its eyes accusing you of botanical malpractice. Too late now, committed to this murky marriage of root and grain. Footsteps crunch outside, real or hunger-born. The ladle freezes mid-stir. 3 quick breaths, no knock follows. Just the wind impersonating creditors, or worse, relatives. A Byzantine text warned of barley-induced paranoia, though your sanity left with last autumn's wine harvest. Your pinky sneaks a taste, the broth baptizes your tongue in blandness. Needs salt, needs herbs, needs a miracle. But the jars across the room and your legs have the vigor of overcooked leeks. Scholars parsed a charred scroll about barley's 12 sacred spices. Ash on your hearth holds more wisdom. The last grains cling to the burlap. You shake the sack like a midwife, slapping a blue baby. 2, 4, 7 rebels tumble loose. A victory Pyrrhus would envy. Outside, An owl shrieks, its cry echoing grain merchants haggling pitches. You throw a splintered spoon handle at the sound score, one for Team Peasant. Dawn's first glow licks the pot's rim. You've been stirring so long. The stars swapped shifts. Blisters burst in time with the bubbles. A grotesque duet. The remedy? More stirring. Always more stirring. Coals whisper their final secrets as the barley surrenders, its starchy heart thickening the brew into something resembling food. You slump against the wall, spoon upright, in rigor mortis grip. Somewhere, a Frankish king feasts on honeyed peacock, but his banquet won't outlast your humble pot's last gurgle. Sleep comes uninvited and grinning as the fire exhales its dying breath. The knife hesitates, its edge catching dawn's weak light like a crooked smile. Winter parsnips never yield clean, these roots twist like old men's fingers after a lifetime of toil. You split one lengthwise, pale flesh oozing sap that glues your thumb to the blade. 10th century peasants buried parsnip seeds with their dead, though whether to feed ghosts or taunt them, no one agrees. Scraps fall to the dirt floor, each heelend a wrinkled moon. Your boot grinds them into the earth, next year's crop, or tonight's rat banquet. Charlemagne once ordered parsnips planted on royal lands. His capitularies called them the winter pear of God. Jokes on him, yours taste like frostbitten carrots raised in a ditch. The blade hits a knuckle, you suck iron from the wound. Sweetness lingers beneath the sting, a memory of summer soil trapped in the root's core. Archaeologists found parsnip pollen in Viking latrine pits. Debates rage about whether they ate them or just wiped with the leaves. Your money's on multitasking. Firewood sparse, you toss a peel into the flames. It curls like a nun's fingernail, blackening into something almost artistic. Waste not, they preached at Mass, but priests never tasted burnt parsnip ash coffee. The scrap heap by the well suggests your neighbors disagree. Their trash bears teeth marks. One usable chunk remains, you chop it into 12 uneven cubes. A 12th century physician claimed odd numbers strengthened the humors, though his cure for rye ergot was don't look at it directly. The first cube plops into the pot, water ripples mimic a noble's disapproving frown. Dirt clings to your sleeve, the black loam Burgundy's famous for. Rich men pay to have it shipped to their gardens. Their roses probably smell better than your broth. That dark earth once grew lentils for Julius Caesar's legions. Now it's lodged under your nails as you stir. A child's laughter drifts through the wall your knife stills. They're playing lord and peasant again. You recognize the thud of turnip heads rolling. Your own childhood doll was a parsnip wrapped in nettlecloth. Mother called it practice for disappointment. The last cube slips from your grip. It bounces off the table's warped edge. Chickens descend in a feathery mob, their clucks sharp as fishwives gossip. You swipe at the leader, she escapes, with her prize clutched in scaly toes. Reward, one less vegetable, plus fresh guilt over breakfast theft. Knife meets wood, The rhythm syncs with dripping icicles outside. Chop, chop, chop. Historians still argue whether root cellars counted as peasant bank accounts. Try depositing a moldy turnip at the Lombard fair. Your belly growls agreement. Coins can't soothe the gut ache, but overcooked parsnips might. Fingers numb, you blow on them, breath fogging the blade. Winter kitchens breed new colors. Fingertip blue, hearth-ruddy cheeks, the gray-green of vegetables dead, but still moving. An illuminated manuscript shows Saint Martha pickling parsnips with honey, though her golden halo probably didn't double as a broth skimmer. The pot belches. A scrap of parsnip floats lit up like a tiny corpse. You flick it under the table with practiced nonchalance. Let the mice think they're winning. Their nests will stink of root rot come spring. Strategic generosity, Gran called it, right before the rats ate her wedding veil. Blade clean, you stab it upright in the table, a rusty Excalibur for whoever's fool enough to claim it. The parsnip's gnarled crown sits discarded, its tangle of roots resembles your family tree. Thin, brittle, prone to rot. Outside, snow muffles the world. Each shovelful you toss onto the compost heap makes a wet thud. Buried scraps whisper through the soil. Next year's problem, next year's hunger. Tonight's broth will taste of earth and grudging hope, the ancestral recipe for survival. The first whisper of steam curls from the pot's lip, a serpent testing the air. You blink as condensation beads on your lashes, the hearth's breath warmer than your own mittened hands. Bubbles cluster, rise, pop, their rhythm syncing with the gurgle of your empty gut. Medieval peasants believed a pot's first sigh predicted the harvest, judging by these timid bubbles. Next autumn's wheat will be as thin as your patience. A splintered ladle dips into the broth, its tarnished belly catching the firelight. You skim the surface, grease swirls like rainwater on a mudslick. Historians still argue whether Burgundian cooks used rosemary before the Crusades. But your stolen sprig from the Lord's garden sinks defiantly into the murk. Let them debate. You've got a crop of bellyaches to cure before Lent. Your sleeve mops your brow, damp wool scratching like a priest's admonishments. The steam slicks your cheeks, ghost kisses from ancestors who survived on worse. Last winter's turnip gruel comes to mind, its aftertaste still haunting your tongue like a bad debt. You poke a floating parsnip chunk. It disintegrates into fibers, resembling your last good stocking. 3 hearthstones crack in the heat, a sound like old bones settling. The ladle handle blisters your palm. You trade hands like a weary century changing posts. Records show 9th century monks added powdered eggshell to thicken broths. You settle for crushing a stale crust between your fists. The crumbs sink like pilgrims into quicksand. Your stomach growls a bleak hallelujah. A bubble bursts with a wet smack, spattering your forearm. The burns swallowed by the chill, gnawing your spine, welcome distraction from yesterday's chilblains. You recall the traveling herbalist's claim that pottage steam cured blindness, though she'd squinted while saying it. Your laugh rings hollow. The pot swallows that too. Its hunger endless. Wind sneaks through the hut's chinks. The fire shivers in reply. You feed it a handful of straw. The flame's brief roar fills the room with shadows. 17th century tax ledgers list iron cauldrons as communal property. Yours came from a peddler who found it near a battlefield. Rust stains bloom beneath the broth's surface, an earthy paprika for the desperate. The spoon circles clockwise, 9 rotations to please Saint Martha, 10 to spite Saint Augustine. A sliver of onion skin clings to the rim. You debate fishing it out. 13th century housekeeping guides warn against hasty adjustments to simmering pots. You flick it into the flames anyway. Watch it crisp into a translucent crescent, a moon for this broth's wretched sky. Salt crusts the clay jar's rim. Your pinch is smaller than a usurer's heart. The grains dissolve midair, a miniature snowfall over a landscape of boiled despair. Archaeologists unearthed a pot in Rouen, still crusted with barley residue. You wonder if its cook wept while stirring. Your knuckle brushes the pot's flank. The iron's heartbeat thrums through your joints. A child's cough hacks through the wall. Yours tightens in sympathy. The ladle trembles, broth sloshes. A drop hits the embers with a vengeful hiss. Apothecaries once sold pottage tonics laced with powdered deer antler. You add another cup of melted snow instead. Let the rich swallow their virility bruise. You'll take warmth that doesn't taste of desperation. Shadows stretch. The steam thins into vaporous ribbons. You inhale deeply the scent of wet wool and overcooked roots. An illuminated calendar shows February as a peasant tending a fire. The artist clearly never fought a cauldron that eats more than it yields. Your spoon scrapes the pot's bottom. The screech sets your teeth on edge. The broth's surface stills, reflecting your face in warped miniature. Sunken eyes, chapped lips, a smear of soil across one cheekbone. Historians still argue whether women or men more often tended hearths. You've seen wolves fight less viciously over a rabbit carcass. A bubble erupts. Your reflection shatters, reforms bleaker than before. Your fourth taste burns less, tongue numbed to disappointment. Flavors emerge. Mud, smoke, the ghost of yesterday's onion. A fringe theory claims Charlemagne's chefs used fermented fish brine as stock. You'd trade 3 saints' days for that luxury. The spoon clatters against the rim, a bell tolling for your hopes of flavor. The last ember gutters its light thinning to a gray smear. You hug the pot's warmth like a lover made of stone. Sleep tugs your eyelids. The broth's surface blurs, briefly, into something resembling contentment. When the cauldron sighs at dawn, you'll still be leaning close. Dawn licks the soot-black pot, your blistered palm locks around the spoon. 3 circles for tradition, 4 for spite. The rhythm carves grooves in time itself. Records claim 13th century cooks stirred 33 times for Lenten dishes. You stop at 12. Your thumb throbs, a lover's pinch from the wooden handle's splintered grip. Historians still argue whether clockwise, stirring honored church bells or older gods. You favor the pagan theory. Each rotation mimics a standing stone's shadow. The village priest would call it heresy, but his belly's rounder than your harvest basket. A button winks up from the broth's depths. Your sister swore buried trinkets warded off famine. Let it simmer, better rusty tin than last week's rancid mutton scrap. The metal glows like a false promise. You'll fish it out come Easter, maybe. Blisters burst, you wipe ichor on your apron. Why do pious rituals always taste of pain? The spoon scrapes upward, a squeal that sets the cat hissing in the rafters. 16th century guilds mandated iron ladles for public kitchens. Yours came free with a peddler's drunken confession. Rust blooms prettier than roses on a lord's tapestry anyway. A gnarled carrot swirls past. Its split ends mimic your own unwashed hair. You stab it. Broth bleeds orange into the murk. Someone in Burgundy probably thought carrots sweetened pottage. Someone clearly lied. Your tongue remembers last month's version, a sludge that clung to ribs like a jealous child. The fire spits, a cinder lands in the pot. Let it burn, that'll be dinner's only spice. A fringe text claims Vikings added crushed hazelnuts to peasant stews. Shame your walnuts went to the Taxman. Crushed acorn shells crunch between your molars, a condiment of last resort. Your reflection blurs in the spoon's concave belly, same hollow cheeks as yesterday. 43 stirs since dawn, or 97. Numbers dissolve like salt in this endless broth. The pot yawns, you yawn back, both of you waiting for a fullness that never comes. Time scratches your palm, dusty green crumbs fall like poison snow. The fire gulps them down, ash blooms in its throat. Your mother swore this herb chased nightmares, judging by last week's dreams. She owed you a refund. Crushing the stems feels like throttling a bishop's neck, satisfying, if slightly sacrilegious. 14th century apothecaries prescribed time tea for battle shock. You'd trade all their scrolls for one spoon of honey. A Norse burial mound near Dijon held time bundles. Archaeologists found rat bones woven into the stems. Maybe their pottage had better seasonings. Smoke sneaks into your nostrils. The sting blurs the hut into a hazy chapel, your knuckles whitening on the spoon. This broth's become a liquid lent. Someone hung rosemary over your cradle. You burn it now to mask moldy grain. The hearth belches, your eyes leak twin streams down grimy cheeks. Historians still argue whether time signaled poverty or prestige in peasant stews. Rich or poor, everyone tastes ashes the same. A sprig hooks under your thumbnail. You suck the bitter sap. If herbs were prayers, this one's a curse spat through clenched teeth. That Viking time probably flavored squirrel stew or seasoned a chieftain's last bribes to Odin. Your pinky traces the ladle's dent, a pilgrim's relic from last harvest. Time clings to your wrist, green veins mapping tomorrow's hunger. You'll find flakes in your hair tonight, the closest you'll get to a crown. Clouds of embers rise. You half expect them to form runes above the pot. The fire pops. Time's last secret dies in the hiss. You stir clockwise, counterclockwise, helpless as a weather vane in a squall. Dusk gnaws the light, your shadow stretches thin across the floorboards. The time's gone now, or maybe you've just stopped tasting it. Somewhere, a monk copies recipes for saints' feasts. You carve yours into blisters and smoke. Rain needles the thatch, each drop drums the rhythm of a slackening heartbeat. Your ladle keeps time, clink-clank, against the pot's bronze ribs. That war song your brother whistled marching off to Crecy. You've boiled it down to this metallic tinnitus. Wet straw weeps musty tears. The scent clings like a drunk uncle at Yuletide. 14th century roofs used marsh reeds sturdier than barley straw. But swamp harvests meant wolf country work. You take leaks over lynx paws any day. A puddle swells by the hearth. Your big toe sketches ripples in the grime. Historians still argue whether peasant homes kept hunting ferrets as roof menders. No ferret here, just moths plotting their damp uprising. The pot burps a high sea. Steam fogs the cobwebs above. You hum the chorus from Elham Armee. Everyone knew that tune once. Now it's just hunger's elevator music. Rain slurs into a drizzle. The rhythm frays like dropped stitches. Your heel won't stop tapping. The spoon won't stop trembling. Even the fire crackles in triplets. Thatch wasn't just for roofs. Old Bertrade stuffed her shoes with it last winter. Froze anyway. You consider lining your skull with the stuff. A droplet lands in the pot, broth shivers. You glare at the ceiling. Baptizing the stew now, are we? Saints grant patience, preferably fermented. Lightning limbs the smoke hole, a split-second glimpse of your shadow on the wall. Gaunt, gowned in steam, holding a ladle like a scepter. Rain renews its assault, thunder grumbles about taxes. The pot's aroma flatlines into wet wool and regret. You miss time, you miss quiet. Hearths in Burgundian keeps had stone hoods. Peasants made do with what the forest stole back yearly. Your fire spits spiteful sparks. The wood's wet. The night's wetter. A leak finds your left scapula. Cold licks your spine. You hunch like a gargoyle. The ladle drips. The roof drips. Time drips. Medieval tax records show 9 chickens per thatch-roofed home, unless the assessor was nearsighted. You've got half a hen's ghost flavoring tonight's broth. The storm hushes, sudden as a snuffed candle. Your ears ring with absence. The pot gurgles its surrender. You swipe at the puddle, water streaks your calf gray. In the silence, the spoon's clang feels obscene. You set it down. The fire dies whispering. Somewhere beyond the forest, a real war drums on. Rain's aftermath pools in your shoes, squelching reminders that nature loves a bad punchline. You'll wring them out at dawn, assuming the frost gives mercy. Thatch drips its final confession, plink into the embers. Whatever rhythm you were keeping drowns in the mud outside. Your heel still taps. Can't stop, won't stop. A wet draft curls around your ankles, brings the scent of drowned earth and distant hearths. You close your eyes. The pot exhales. Tomorrow's chores yawn ahead, rethatching the east corner, begging kindling from surly Martin, pretending turnips taste like triumph. For now, the rain's rude lullaby claims you. Dawn's weak light paints grease swirls on the broth, a galaxy of fat orbiting your ladle's tarnished moon. Last night's storm left pockmarks in the soil, your scum-poor target. You dip metal into warmth. The handle's wood grain bites your blisters. 14th century kitchen manuals insisted thrice daily skimming, cleansing the pot's humors. As if stews had moods, your stew's humors blacker than a friar's robes. The ladle tilts, murky islands coalesce on the surface. Burgundian estate ledgers list skimming spoons among kitchen tools, silver for nobles, pitted tin for the rest. Yours came from a peddler's grave-robbed wares, at least that's what his eyebrows implied. A globule quivers, you flick it onto the dirt. Old Nan swore buried scum warded off locusts, or attracted them, memories unreliable when hunger's your scribe. The grease sinks into earth, worms writhe up, then retreat. Experts still dispute whether our ancestors skimmed for purity, or just despised the look of Lazarus meat rising. Your pot won't win pageant prizes either way. Another swipe, another Rorschach blot of congealed misfortune. The ladle's edge catches firelight, revealing your warped reflection. Gaunt cheeks, soot-smudged chin, eyes like oversteeped tea. You resemble those doom-laden prophets in the abbey frescoes, if prophets smelled of wet turnip. 2 options with scum: feed it to pigs or soil. Pigs got confiscated last Michaelmas. The dirt gets your leavings. It'll outlive you regardless. Medieval midwives sometimes used grease skim for salves, claimed it healed hoof rot. You've got a blister that could use attention, but dignity stalls your hand. Each scoop uncovers clearer broth beneath, truth emerging through discarded lies. The spoon trembles fatigue or palsy. Hard to tell after 3 sleepless nights. A spider descends on silk, aborts mission upon spotting your culinary efforts. Smart arthropod. You smear a grease streak on its thread, watch it scramble skyward like a drunk acrobat. Your big toe squelches in yesterday's rain puddle, a cold reminder to mend the thatch. Later, after skimming, after pretending this broth's more than heated regret. Records show monks seasoned broth skimmings as parchment glue. Another reason their manuscripts smell like rancid feasts. You sniff the ladle and suddenly believe every word. The last oily archipelago surrenders, broth now mimicry of something intentional. You drizzle the final scoop over a nettle patch. Revenge for last summer's rash. Sun climbs, disputes the calendars claim it's spring. The scum patch glistens, fake amber tempting no one. Even crows peck skeptically before flapping off, disgusted. Your spine crackles as you straighten up. The pot exhales a meat-scented sigh. 13 skims, a number that panic the abbey numerologists. You never learned their holy math anyway. Wind riffles through holy thatch, brings the tannery's stench to the party. The broth absorbs it, because why should your nostrils suffer alone? That tax collector's face floats in the steam smug pours, glistening with your lard. You spit into the fire. It hisses back, a brief, satisfying feud. 3 houseflies perform synchronized death spirals above the pot. You salute their commitment to bad life choices. The ladle dries on a hook, stainless as your prospects. Hunger tightens its belt around your ribs. The broth's surface gleams, almost virtuous, almost enough to forget the rat bones lurking below. Night's grease becomes day's offering, circle of life, peasant edition. You wipe hands on your apron. It smears more than cleans. Somewhere, a duchess's laundress just shuddered inexplicably. Dirt drinks your leavings, a blackened Rorschach blot on the garden. Come summer, something might grow here, or it'll just stink. Centuries later, archaeologists will debate this stain's purpose. Let them. The spoon settles. The pot simpers. You arch your back, vertebrae singing the ballad of endless toil. Tomorrow's skimming awaits. But first, 3 breaths. 5 heartbeats. A moment stolen from time's ledger. Clouds regroup overhead, threatening encore. You eye the broth. It eyes you back. Truce or war? The answer's written in steam and the absence of scum. The salt pork scrap hits broth with a wet kiss, its marbled edges curling like a nobleman's wig. You found it wrapped in moldy linen beneath the floorboard, ancient larder of last resorts. Fat blooms auric swirls, temporary alchemy, transforming murk to gilded illusion. 13th century tax records show Burgundian peasants paid salt dues in pork, 3 strips per hog for preservation rights. Your strips, shriveled dignity mocks those ledgers. The broth drinks its essence, meat dissolving into spectral brine. Dignified folk used pork fat to polish church bells, claimed it deepened the toll's resonance. You lick your thumb, tasting bronze and desperation instead. The flavor vanishes faster than a coin in a beggar's cup. Historians still argue whether such scraps were feast or famine food. Your tongue votes famine. The pork's ghost leaves an oily mustache on the broth. You wipe it with a threadbare sleeve, new stain for the collection. A bubble bursts, spits hot fat onto your wrist. The sting's almost companionable proof life hasn't finished with you yet. You suck the burn, salt and iron, and the pig's final defiance. Medieval illuminations show pigs wearing monkish robes, a joke about gluttony, or a lost nursery tale. Your porcine benefactor's fate feels equally cryptic. Teeth marks mar the rind, yours or a rat's. Best not to dwell. The scrap disintegrates, pale fibers clinging to the ladle like drowned lace. You chase them, but they sink, Houdinas of the pot. Your belly grooms a cathedral-sized emptiness. A butcher's rhyme drifts up from memory, snout to tail. We eat the sin, the rest dissolves. like everything else. Steam fogs your lashes, blurs the pot into a greasy mirage. Someone once wrote that pork fat floated Cleopatra's barge down the Nile. Yours barely keeps this broth afloat. You poke the remaining rind, it sinks without fanfare. 3 licks of flavor haunt your mouth. Was that sage, smoke, or just the ghost of better meals? The ladle trembles. Halfway now, the pork's gone rogue. Sunlight glints through a crack in the wall, catches the broth's oily rainbow. Nature's mocking stained glass. You shield your eyes, light's too rich for such a thin moment. Anthropologists will later find pork DNA in cesspits, speculate about secret feasts. You know the truth. 1 tooth-scraped bit, hoarded till it haunted you. The pot gurgles a wet punchline. Fat congeals at the edges, pale wax sealing tomorrow's disappointment. You scratch it with a fingernail, save the crumb under your chipped incisor. Breakfast of maybe nobles. The fire sputters down to embers, mirroring the pork's departure. You hug your knees, watch gold fade to gray. Somewhere, a well-fed hog roots through afterlife's orchards, laughing. Wind sneaks in, carries the broth's final whisper upward. Your nostrils flare, chasing vaporized luxury. Empty bowl, empty hands. Fullness remains a fable scribbled in recipe books you can't read. Shadows stretch across the hearth, time's cleaver chopping day into portions. You lick the ladle, metal teeth, gnaw your tongue. No trace left, but the memory of absence, salted and slight. Embers crackle their last aria, red pupils dimming in ash beds. You tilt the empty bowl, its shadow crawls up the wall, a slinking companion for the night. Stars pierce the thatch, ice-pick pricks in the sky's black hide. 13th century astronomers called the Milky Way Via Lactea, Star River guiding souls to Jerusalem's gates. Yours meanders nowhere, drifting across the soot-stained ceiling. A moth bumbles into the hearth, wings singed translucent. You blow it toward the door, a failed benediction. Medieval midwives once swore sleeping under starshot thatch cured colicky babes. Your own childhood roof bore similar holes, yet you howled till dawn regardless. The memory pulls a smirk, chapped lips splitting like overripe plums. Historians still argue whether peasants truly slept straight through winter nights, or woke for midnight gossip and goat cheese snacks. Your guts vote for the latter. They growl a Gregorian chant. You count bubble burst gaps instead. 1, 2, breath held 3. Wind shoulders through the door crack, nudges the pot's stained silhouette. It sways a drunken monk at vespers. Cold climbs your spine, a thief's fingers probing for warmth. You wrap the ladle in your skirt, metal handle leaching residual heat. A peat brick crumbles. Its decay smells like grandfather's burial shirt. Night air tints everything funeral sharp. Your big toe finds a warm stone by the hearth, tiny victory against the freeze. 14th century, tanners paid beggars to sleep on lime-treated hides. Body heat activated the chemicals. You'd have volunteered. Dangerous work beats numb toes. The stone cools, you shift, Wood smoke tattoos new patterns on your calf. Cistercian monks wrote of the watchful dark, hourly prayers to ward off demonic lullabies. Your own vigil needs no psalms, hungers an adequate sentinel. The ladle clinks, startling a mouse from the kindling pile. A sneeze builds, you clamp it silent. Lungs burn, tears smear the stars into blurry asterisks. The mouse freezes, one paw raised, complicit in this strangled comedy. Candle clocks measured night hours in wax. Wealthy ladies used perfumed tapers for scented time. Your version. The pot's slow drip against the griddle stone. It fashions a stalactite of grease, culinary cave art. 3 villages over, a crone reportedly divined futures in chicken keelbones. You squint at the grease sculpture. It resembles a melted crown. A shiver crawls your nape, not prophecy, just drafts through your threadbare wimple. Throat tightens, swallowing becomes a chore. You mimic the priest's Advent fast, forced austerity instead of piety. Saliva's scant, tongue sticks to teeth, a dry docked ship. Astrolabes plotted star patterns for royal bedtimes. Commoners used goose fat smears on windows to gauge starlight's angle. Your lone grease mark shows midnight's claw hovering high. The pot belches, echoing your stomach's lament. A bat swoops through the rafters, leathern whispers brushing your scalp. You duck ancient reflexes from the year grain stores hosted a colony. They left at dawn, took your millet stores with them. Scholars posit medieval bodies adapted to lunar cycles, sleeping deepest under full moons. Tonight's sliver offers no charity. You count 14 bubble pops before the broth flatlines, its surface still as a lye pond. A dream tries to root, flashes of a roast boar wearing your mother's wedding veil. You jab a thumb into your shin, pain's gambit to stay conscious. The veil dissolves, boar becomes a gnarled turnip, your fist bleeds. Owl hoots sync with your blinks, nature's metronome. Eyelids droop, you see the fire through orange filters, ashes masquerading as ambrosia's crumbs. A creak floorboard or spirit, both ignore your raised ladle. Wind answers, rattling the shutters like a jester's bones. You slump, wood digs into your shoulder blade, another bruise for morning's tally. Dawns a rumor beyond the eastern woods, Star River wheel turns without you. You mouth a lullaby, no lyrics left, just breath shaping the notes of absence. Steam paints your lashes heavy. The hut's edges bleed into gauzy nothing. A giggle bubbles beneath the pot lid, high and bright, a sound stolen from your 10th summer. Blisters throb in time with your pulse, the ladle still wedged in your clawed grip. Scholars claim medieval peasants napped in 2 sleeps, waking at midnight for prayers or trysts. Your eyelids veto this theory. They slam shut like tower portcullises. The hearth's dying breath fogs your cheeks, a ghostly kiss. A crone once told you dreams ride on sage smoke. You burned your last sprig yesterday. Now phantoms hitchhike on carrot vapors instead. The ceiling swims. Thatch becomes a thatch of golden hair, your sister's, long buried. Historians still argue whether famine dreams shimmered gold or mold green. Yours drip rust red, tonight old blood and older wine. The ladle morphs, cold iron twisting into a willow switch, your father's favorite disciplinary tool. The laugh erupts again, louder now, as the pot lid clatters to the floor. Steam births a child's form, translucent and shimmering, dancing on the broth's surface. Its feet sizzle, but the grin never falters. 13th century leech books prescribed poppy tinctures for overtaxed minds. Your remedy? Staring into boiling pots until reality softens. The child stretches, its limbs elongating into carrot stems, elbows knobby as parsnip nodes. A drip hits your forehead, warm broth or tired tear. The child ghost points to the empty bowl, its mouth moving soundlessly. You know the shape of those words. More. Monks wrote of demons who fed on empty larders, incubus gluttons haunting starving households. This specter feels different, smaller, a wisp of your own hunger given shape. It pirouettes, scattering steam rings that smell inexplicably of burnt honey. Your spine meets the wall, gritting teeth as splinters pierce your tunic. The ghost plunges into the pot broth, erupting in a geyser. Liquid arcs, hissing as it hits flames, and the vision snaps. Darkness reclaims the hut, the only steam now from your shuddering breath. The ladle lies abandoned, its bowl moonlit and empty. Blisters weep onto your thigh, sticky trails mapping your vigilance. Records show bakers added hallucinogenic ergot-tainted rye to stretch flour during famines. You count 30 heartbeats. Is this madness or marrow-deep exhaustion? The pot yawns, a black mouth rimmed with crusted barley. The laugh fades, echoing down imaginary corridors. Your pinky traces the bowl's rim, a habit from childhood porridge contests. Bone china this ain't. The clay's roughness snags your calloused skin. Archaeologists found sleep herbs in peasant hut remains, valerian root stuffed into straw mattresses. Yours cradles only lice and desperation. You slump sideways, cheek pressing against the hearth's residual warmth. The ghost's absence leaves louder silence, ears ringing with memories of market days. Roasted chestnuts, haggling cries, the reek of dye vats. Now just cedar smoke and decaying mortar. A jolt, your skull meets the floor, vision doubling. 2 pots now, 2 fireplaces, 2 ladles accusing you from the shadows. Blink hard, the world snaps back into singular suffering. Moonlight carves a path to the doorway, a silver invitation to frozen fields. Your legs ignore it, rooted to the dirt floor. The bowl's shadow creeps up your ankles, cold shackles. History whispers of second winds, keeping sentinels awake for days. Yours expired at vespers, brain silted with fatigue. The child's laughter echoes in your molars, vibrating through jawbone to skull. 1 breath, 2, 3. The pot exhales a final garlic-scented sigh. You shut your eyes, embracing the void, as the dream reaches up sticky fingers to claim you. Moonlight pools in the ladle's bowl, a quicksilver mirror warped by dregs of barley. Your pinky dips, broth sears the fingerprint whorls, flavors exploding like shattered honeycomb. Earth first, the tang of turned soil after spring rains. Smoke next, a woody whisper from applewood embers. Then regret bitter and metallic, the aftertaste of unwashed turnip greens. You hiss, recoiling, and ram the burning digit into a snowdrift piled by the threshold. Medieval physicians swore by cold compresses for burns, testimonies etched in parchment-blackened ledgers. The frostbite risk, rarely mentioned. Your teeth chatter as numbness spreads, a fair trade. Night air stings your nostrils clean and knife-sharp after the hut's smoky fug. The pot burbles smugly, its surface oil-slick under the moon's gaze. Farmers once believed full moons soured milk, but thickened stews. You spit into the ashes, testing the superstition. Historians still argue whether birch twigs improved broth clarity or just masked the taste of rot. Your spoon scrapes the pot's side, collecting a gluey strand of grain. It strings between metal and clay like peasants, silk, snapping only when you flick the wrist. A shadow shifts your own silhouette, stretching across the floorboards in a languid yawn. The snowmelt on your finger glistens, a makeshift jewel for a broth-tasting queen. You snort, the sound ricochets off empty shelves, echoing hollower each pass. 12th century root cellars hid turnips under horseradish leaves to confuse hunger spirits. Your last wrinkled tuber wears no such disguise, naked and apologetic on the chopping block. The knife descends, splitting pithy flesh, revealing veins white as a fish's belly. Scraps plop into the pot. Each splash crowns your tunic with grease freckles. Stirring feels heavier now, spoon handle slick with congealed tallow. Some Duke's chef probably uses gilded utensils to skim consommé, while you wrestle a rusted tin soldier through gruel. The moon dips its light, retreating like a jilted suitor. Firelight climbs the walls instead, dancing madly as wind shoulders through cracks. Cold nips your ankles, a feral thing scenting weakness. You kick the hearth's edge, a spark-short answers brief and spiteful. Legends claim Saint Martha tamed dragons with a single ladle of lentil stew. Your dragon's a clay pot, its breath reeking of desperation. You poke the embers, releasing a trapped oak nut's final pop. Heat resurges, broth churning its bubbles, mapping hidden currents. The steam carries a new scent, mildewed wool. Or is that your sleeve? You sniff, praying for rosemary, but catch only the damp ghost of unwashed hair. Townsfolk whisper of nobles tossing saffron threads into wedding soups like golden confetti. Your spice is a rock salt chunk gnawed to mouse skull proportions. It meets the broth with a resentful hiss, dissolving into the murk. Archaeologists found traces of boiled acorns in Burgundian midden heaps, starvation's punctuation mark. Your tongue prods a loose molar, the ghost of last winter's acorn bread still lodged there. The spoon swirls, dragging gray froth into spirals. Dawn's first bruise purples the east, but you beat the sun awake. Blisters have birthed blisters, your palm a swollen landscape fit for Dante. The ladle dips again, stealing a scant half-sip. Cold broth coats your throat, mucus thick, flavors mellow overnight. Regret now a background hum beneath wood smoke. Your stomach growls. A feral dog offered table scraps. Muscle memory hoists the spoon automatic, even as your knees buckle. Frost etches the window hole, fern patterns mirroring the pot's cracked glaze. Candle stubs mock from their alcove unlit. Who needs tallow when moonlight bleaches everything bone pale? The last sips, always the cruelest, gritty, with settled sediment. It rasps your gums, a final insult. Snow still clings to your pinky, dull pain, now sharpening with thaw. You suck it clean salt, and iron blooming, the taste of persistence. Wind shrieks through the thatch, plucking straws like a lyre's untuned strings. The empty pot stares back, a cyclops deprived of its meal. You set the ladle across its rim, a bridge between hunger and tomorrow's hope. Yellow eyes pierce the steam shadows, two smoldering coins sizing up your worth. The cat arches its spine, a dismissive crescent moon, before resuming its statuesque disdain. You flick a parsnip curl toward those gleaming pupils. It lands with a wilted thud. Medieval homes relied on cats for pest control, though this one seems more interested in theatrical contempt. Its tail twitches, a metronome counting down your irrelevance. You hum a tavern ditty badly off-key, just to watch its ear fur flatten. Records show 13th century Paris had more cats per alley than beggars. Your visitor sports a torn ear and fur matted with what smells like elderberry wine. It sniffs the parsnip scrap, paws it twice, then bats it into the ashes. Farmwives once believed cats stole infants' breath. Your intruder couldn't even steal a turnip. The pot's dying heat warps the air between you, creating a lens that magnifies its contempt. You stub your toe on the hearthstone. The cat's whiskers twitch in what might be sympathy. Historians still argue whether noblewomen's lapcats outranked scullery mousers in the medieval social order. This one would clearly rank itself above bishops. It licks a paw with exaggerated precision, each rasp louder than the last bubble popping in your pot. Moonlight stripes its fur, turning ragged gray into spectral silver. For a heartbeat, it almost looks regal, until it sneezes into last week's onion peels. The sound startles you both, breaking the tension with a wet splatter. Cats featured in apothecary guides as cure-alls, their droppings supposedly healed cataracts when mixed with honey. You'd rather go blind. The beast leaps onto the windowsill tail, brushing your last candle stub into oblivion. Dawn's first yawn bleeds across the sky, pink, smudging the cat's silhouette into a smeared charcoal sketch. It stares at the horizon, pretending interest in peasant toil as you scrub crusted broth from the ladle. Tales persist of monastery cats who rang bells for mealtimes. This freeloader wouldn't lift a claw to save your soul. You toss a pebble at the wall. The cat's ear swivels, the only acknowledgement you'll ever get. Wind claws through the thatch, sending straw needles skittering across the floor. The cat pounces on one, a brief flash of playfulness, before remembering it's above such antics. It retreats, licking imaginary dirt from its haunch. Your fire sputters, casting a deathbed glow on the scene. The pot sits cold, its emptiness amplified by the cat's unblinking scrutiny. You're debating which of you looks more pathetic when it suddenly bolts, a shadow swallowed by brighter shadows. Moss-crusted cobblestones outside still hold its paw prints come morning, tiny accusations in the mud. You trace one with your pinky, still throbbing from last night's broth baptism. The impression outlasts the cat, and your final scrap of self-delusion. The barley splits open milky hearts, swelling in the simmering murk. Your spoon scrapes the pot's belly, each rotation thickening the brew like a peasant's grudging prayer. Dawn licks the hut's single greased window, casting prison bar shadows across your wrist. 12th century diets ran on barley. Its stubbornness against frost made it the pauper's wheat. You skim a foam scab off the surface. It clings to the ladle like a beggar's last coin. Legends claim Norwegian housewives tossed barley grains to predict suitors if they sank. Death by soup spoon. Yours float defiantly. You blow on the steam, watching it warp into a bishop's sneer. Historians still argue whether lords slurped pottage or just forced serfs to stir their shame. Your version smells like wet wool and crushed hope, fit for a king's midlife crisis. A stray grain pops. Its explosion echoes through the hut's hollow ribs. The sound mirrors your empty gut's protest. You pocket 3 seeds for spring planting, a gamble against next winter's smirk. Monastery records show barley stores determined village survival rates during the Great Famine, arithmetic written in swollen bellies and stillborn calves. Your fire belches, a sooty hiccup that stains the ceiling. 16th century quacks prescribed barley water for infertility, though your neighbor Agnes drank gallons and birthed only colic. You stir clockwise, fighting the brew's stubborn clots, your blisters weeping into the broth. The mixture groans, a wet rumble olden grains might have made settling into Egyptian king's tomb stores. Experts think communal pots bridged feuds, though your last sharing earned a black eye and 2 turnips. Moisture beads on the ladle's handle, sweat or steam's tears. You can't tell. A trickle snakes down your forearm, carving a muddy trail through yesterday's ash. Scholars pore over cookbooks from Cleopatra's era. None mention the sacred art of not burning pottage. You inhale the crusted rim char and regret sting your nostrils. The spoon stands upright, quivering like a divining rod over thin soil. Thick bubbles bloat and burst, each one a 30-second sermon on futility. You spit into the fire. It hisses back. Medieval towns fined brewers for undercooked barley. Your punishment is eating the evidence. Daylight now claws through the thatch, exposing every desperate fleck floating in your feast. An old tale claims Charlemagne's cook used pottage to glue mosaic tiles. Yours could mortar a cathedral. The cat from yesterday watches through the window, its nose wrinkled in feline disdain. Debates rage about whether crusaders carried barley seeds in their boots. Seems less likely than blisters and heresy. You wipe the spoon on your tunic. The stain matches the rest. The last ember dies, its final puff of smoke curling into a question mark. You ladle the glue-like mass into a bowl. It plops with the enthusiasm of a hanged man's sigh. First bite coats your teeth, gritty persistence, pretending to be sustenance. Somewhere, a wealthy merchant sips almond milk stew, his belly round with stolen grain. Your jaw clenches, grinding ancestral resilience into swallowable silence. Wind riffles the thatch, scattering barley husks across the floor like discarded futures. You sweep them into the fire, watching sparks carry your hunger toward indifferent stars. Frost gnaws through the hut's chinks, needle teeth pricking your nape. The pot's steam wavers, a spectral flag, surrendering to winter's siege. You jam the splintered stool leg into the hearth, last rites for 3 generations of numb buttocks. 14th century peasants slept with heated stones wrapped in rags. Your ancestors would have killed for such luxury. The leg cracks, sap hisses like a knight's armor in rain. You count heartbeats between firewood snaps. 18, 19, 20. A Moldovan folktale claims frost demons hate the smell of burning walnut. 2. Bad your stool's oak. Flames spit resentment, casting horned shadows that mock your shivers. Historians still debate whether medieval frigidity inspired mulled wine or just chronic chilblains. Your breath hangs milky, coating the pot's rim with rime. The broth thickens, gelatinous defiance against the creeping chill. Your pinky grazes the ladle, frostbite wages war on calluses. You snort, snot freezes mid-drip, a makeshift icicle jewel for your nose. The cat's paw prints circle the cooling pot, feline OSHA inspector, condemning your kitchen. Peat smoke stings your eyes, tears freeze lace your lashes into tiny chandeliers. You remember Agnes bragging about her uncle's badger fur mittens. Rotten luck, he died mid-stitch. The wind shrieks hungry as a pardoner's conscience. A papal decree once banned heating church floors during Lent. Sacrilege never warmed your toes. You press blistered palms to the hearthstone, heat flees like a burger from taxes. Archaeologists found 9 frozen rat skeletons in a Flemish chimney flue, their last meal. Barley husks, your stomach growls, answering the pot's dwindling gurgles. The flames whisper secrets in a dead language, crackling Norse curses, or maybe old Frankish pickup lines. 13th century English law fined lords who skimped on tenant firewood. Your landlord prefers paying in boot kicks. You gnaw the stool's unburnt end. Splinters map blood trails across your tongue. The pot belches, one final bubble pops in a perfect imitation of vesper bells. Gascony winters birthed the soup des murmurs, allegedly made from snow and whispers. Yours simmers with a stubbornness that make a Cathar heretic blink. You huddle closer, the cauldron's fading warmth, a lover's goodbye kiss. 3 embers remain, Charlemagne's lost talisman, a witch's winking eye, your childhood fever dream. The last log crumbles, ash ghosts rise to join the draft's dance macabre. Frost creeps across the pottage skin, a glacial shroud for tomorrow's despair. Your spoon stands frozen mid-stir, a rusted monument to expired resolve. 3 knocks split the frost hush, each thud syncs with your heartbeat. The ladle dives into the straw mattress, too late. Pottage vapors curl under the door like traitorous serpents. 14th century sumptuary, laws forbade peasants from locking doors to travelers. Not that your hingeless plank counts. The wood groans. A gaunt face appears in the crack. His cloak drips sleet onto your dirt floor, uninvited, but legally binding. You glimpse a pilgrim's badge pinned upside down, a sure sign he's either pious or cursed. His smile shows 3 missing teeth. The gaps align with the knocks. He hums a tavern ditty, the one the taxman whistled before seizing your hens. Historians still argue whether goose fat or bean ash made better medieval door grease. You step back, his breath smells of pickled turnips and bad decisions. The pot shudders its last bubbles, popping in Morse code warnings. I've walked from St. Omer. He croaks, naming the town where they once burned a cheesewheel thief. His boots shed mud clods, each thump echoes Agnes telling you never to trust men with mismatched laces. A 2013 dig near Provence found pilgrim corpses with hollowed heels, secret compartments for smuggling St. Knuckles. Your visitor flexes frost-bitten fingers, no hidden relics, just swollen joints. He stares at the pot like it's the shroud of Turin. You mutter about the broth being cursed, a lie thinner than your threadbare cloak. He counters with a wink and a dried herring, barter coin plucked from who knows where. The cat hisses, its tail puffs into a feathered duster of disapproval. 8 heartbeats pass, the time it takes to rob a grave or say a Hail Mary. You portion stew into your least cracked bowl. 3 carrots float like drowned finger bones. He slurps loud enough to wake the hearth ghosts. Your father's ghost glares from the chimney nook. Pilgrims used hawthorn branches to ward off witches. Too bad yours burned in November's desperation. The stranger traces a cross in the air, crumbs falling like benedictions. His spoon scrapes the bowl's curve, a sound that tightens your jaw. He claims Hungarians boil gold into fever tonics, a tidbit that reeks of tavern tall tales. You nod, eyeing his dagger's hilt peeking beneath the pilgrim's cloak. The wind howls through the door crack, nature's own beggar demanding entry. Your stew dwindles, his belt creaks as he leans back. 2 copper pennies materialize on the table, the one-eyed king, staring sideways at your hunger. You pocket them, feeling their weight displace a hole in your gut. A 1,392 edict required English inns to serve travelers. no mention of broth laced with resentment. He wipes his mouth, sleeve stains matching the pot's ancient scorch marks. The fire exhales ash, gray snow settling on his uninvited boots. When he leaves, 3 footsteps echoing the triple knock, you count the carrots remaining. 11. Exactly what you'd started with. The cat pounces on a stray pea, its verdict clear in the crunch. You rehide the ladle, now flavored with stranger spit and poor choices. The door plank shudders, wind carrying a last whisper about Venetian spies posing as penitents. Frost reclaims the threshold, sealing the encounter like a tomb. The hearth's breath stutters as another knock rattles the door plank. 2 sharp raps this time, like a woodpecker with a grudge. You count the embers, 3 left, same as the carrots bobbing in your pot. The law says travelers get broth, even when your ladle's still warm from yesterday's uninvited mouth. Your guest's a wool peddler, judging by the threads clinging to his patched hose. He unwinds a scarf crusted with road frost, revealing a trader's pinch-lipped smile. His bowl's a chipped pilgrim's token, Jerusalem's cross worn smooth from years of borrowed meals. 14th century peasants often shared trenchers, those stale bread slabs that doubled as plates. You slice no bread today. The pot's contents barely cover its ribs, a broth so thin it's halfway to steam. Heard you took in a Florentine last week, he says, eyeing the soot-streaked hearthstone. His tongue flicks over blackened teeth, rot, or walnut dye. You can't tell. Man swore blind your pottage cured his ague. You snort, the same sound your dying goat made last spring. The ladle scrapes the pot's bottom, a metallic screech that sets his eye twitching. 2 wrinkled peas surface, like drowned eyes. Golden penny slips deeper into your pocket. Beggars once traded lead tokens, stamped with saints, fake relics for gullible innkeepers. His fingers brush yours during the bowl pass, calluses sharper than your scythe's edge. Steam fogs his spectacles, glass lenses so warped they bend the firelight sideways. Passing through to Eris, he mutters, naming the town whose flea market sells, lies river eels packed in honey. Your broth reflects his face, ripples turning his nose into a carrot stub. Historians still argue whether trencher bread got eaten or tossed to pigs. You know the truth. Hunger makes a spice no merchant can bottle. His spoon hesitates, eyeing the lone carrot chunk you've strategically avoided. He eats it anyway. Wind hisses through the thatch, counting seconds until he leaves. His belt pouch jingles, archer's thumb ring clinking against pilgrim badges. No coins emerge. The law requires sustenance, not satisfaction. When he stands, his shadow swallows the fire hole, a momentary eclipse. He drops a lead St. Christopher medal into your woodpile. For luck, he lies dusting crumbs from his tunic. The cat bats the trinket into the ashes, its opinion clear. You sip the dregs, tepid liquid pooling in the bowl's deepest crack. His footsteps fade, replaced by the cat's sandpaper tongue cleaning the empty dish. Somewhere, a fishmonger's counting coins. Somewhere, a king's feasting on peacock tongues. Your thumb traces the bowl's fissure, a map of old hungers. The taste lingers, not of carrots or parsnips, but of doorways never locked and bellies never full. Your fingers graze the papyrus scraps lining the lone chest, edges crumbling like burnt bread crusts. The merchant's lead metal sits heavy in your palm, a poor trade for broth, thin enough to read through. Moonlight bleaches the Greek letters sprawled across the brittle sheets, stolen glimpses from the bailiff's discarded correspondence. Egyptian kings coated dormice in honey, served them on silver sticks during Cleopatra's feast of the inundation. Your pot burps, a millet bubble pops, releasing smells closer to wet sheep than Nile decadence. The cat sniffs, then retreats its verdict on peasant cuisine final. You trace an inked illustration, a bare-chested servant fanning a roasted ibis. Historians still argue whether commoners mimicked royal sugar sculptures with mud and beet juice. Your laugh comes out bitter stale as month-old rushes strewn across the dirt floor. Imagination's free, even when the pot isn't. A papyrus fragment crumbles. You salvage a scrap, showing crocodiles lazing on riverbanks. The bailiff's scribe swore Egypt's heathens worshipped them as gods, yet you've seen villagers bow to the miller's mangy terrier after it killed a rat king. Divine standards slip when harvests fail. Your thumb rubs the St. Christopher medal, now dangling over the hearth like blasphemous mistletoe. Pilgrims claim Mediterranean traders sell mummy wrappings as medicine. You'd sooner chew your own boot than swallow some dried corpse bandage. Hunger hasn't robbed you of standards, just dignity. The fire dims, its glow outlining a hieroglyph resembling your broken spoon. Cleopatra apparently drank pearl vinegar to showcase her wealth. You tap the pot's rim, its bronze once gleamed, before becoming a permanent resident of hearth and lack. Wind whistles through the thatch, mocking your Egyptian delusions. No lotus flowers here, just frost-nipped chamomile struggling by the midden heap. You stir clockwise, as if conjuring barley from memory alone. The cat yowls, unimpressed by culinary necromancy. One fragment mentions a palace dessert, dates stuffed with fermented fish guts. Your nose wrinkles. Maybe history's better left unread. The pot steam fogs the papyrus, blurring empires into a gray smear. Tomorrow brings more scraping, more travelers, more lead trinkets. But tonight your broth tastes faintly of papyrus ink and stolen grandeur. The cat finally approaches, licking the bowl clean of both. Dew soaks your hem as you haul the bucket up, chains shrieking like a scalded cat. The water glints wrong, metallic sheen, catching dawn's weak glare. You squint, a dark shape bobs beneath the surface, tail curled like a rotted fiddlehead. Iron stings your tongue before the ladle touches lips rust and something meaty. Experts think medieval villagers tossed salt down wells to fight plague miasmas. But no spice hides this. Your shawl becomes a sieve, threads straining fur clumps from the brew. The rat's eye stares up, milk blue, judging your desperation. Farm wives once swore drowned rodents, sweetened beer, gristle upgrading, swill to sacrament. You gag, dumping the bucket over withered beans, their shriveled shells glistening with contaminated dew. The stable boy shuffles past, his own pail sloshing. Old Martin's dog lapped it anyway, swelled up stiff as Yule log. He grins, 3 teeth shining. You pretend not to hear the splash as his bucket meets trough. Back at your fire, the pot scowls, its empty belly mocking. Historians still argue whether rat kings were peasant hoaxes or nature's cruel pranks. Your fist crumbles the last rosemary sprig, its piney scent undercut by well stink. That shawl now drapes the bucket, a lace of wool and betrayal. You remember the bailiff's wife, how her linen filters caught even sunlight dust. Angry tears etch mud tracks. You swipe them with an onion skin handkerchief. Noon brings pilgrims, their lips cracking with thirst. You nod to the contaminated well silence, cheaper than confession. Their tin cups clink, gulps loud as forge bellows. Later, you'll find copper coins wedged in the mud penance or payment. Twilight combs the fields, stubbled wheat poking through frost like skeletal fingers. You carve a new catch basin from rotted oak, knife slipping on slimy wood. Someone once told you brewer's yeast cleans water, but your neighbor's vat drowned in the blight. The cat sniffs your repairs, tail twitching at sour puddles. You name the basin Cleopatra, a joke only fire hears. Across the dark, the blacksmith's hammers sing of nails forged without rust. Sleep comes fitful visions of rats threading tails through your broth. Your gut growls, a feral counterpoint to the owl's midnight aria. The shawl flutters damp and accusing on its peg. Dawn finds you hauling snowmelt from the midden's cleaner puddles. The bitter well watches, ice crusting its mouth like a debtor's final breath. Shadows stretch like thieves across the floorboards. Your gut growls against the sundial's smug geometry. The spoon rasps against iron, an empty pot song. They'll tell you these time markers track heaven's clock, but your stomach knows hours better than some shadow on a slate. Sunlight glares off the bronze gnomon. You squint at the scratch marks, some monk sold as noon. Back when bread filled bellies, town criers would ring terse, and none based on its lies. Now you count meals by the pot's emptiness, its scraped sides slick as a liar's tongue. Some peddler once claimed Roman sundials, warned, I count only bright hours. Peasant wisdom etched in hexagonal gardens. You snort. If hunger gauged time, this day would span 3 winters. The baker's boy jangles past, his basket reeking of rye you'll never taste. A historian in Paris insists medieval serfs ignored sundials, tracking time by cowbells and witchcraft. You kick the gnomon's base. It wobbles, noon slipping into phantom terse. The village square once had a proper merkit from Alexandria, smashed into axle parts during the Great Thaw. Your thumbnail traces cracks in the sundial's face, fissures gaping wider each year. Scholars still bicker whether peasants greased dials to fake longer work hours. Fat chance your arm prickles under the sun's glare. Noon burns identical to hunger. The manor's shadow creeps towards your hut, a twice daily reminder of debts unpaid. You hurl a pebble, it skitters off the bronze, chipmunk fast. Back when coin flowed, craftsmen etched sundials with bawdy mottos about tavern wenches. Now they just tally, the Lord's fields lie fallow. Mice nests crumble in your fingers, last night's failed snacks. A fragment of parchment claims Cleopatra, Egyptian queen. Carried a perfume vial sundial, jasmine oil marking hours. You spit, the droplet sizzles on hot bronze, a sour substitute for elegance. 3 crows land on the gnomon, their beaks snapping at heat shimmers. Rigid shadows pinpoint non-existent grains in the dirt. Your stomach clenches. Monks might debate lunar versus solar time, but empty bellies tick louder than any celestial gearwork. The blacksmith's widow walks by her shadow, bisecting the dial's false noon. Bury it face down, she hisses. Her dead husband forged its counterfeit angles. You shrug. It's still the village's best mirror. Sunset pries the spoon from your grip, its handle warped from constant scraping. 13th century horologists swore dials worked better with crushed adder eyes. You tried dandelion pulp instead. The fading light stains your palms orange, a taunting reminder of pumpkin stews past. Night floods the square. The sundial becomes a mere stone. Your thumbnail throbs where steel bit flesh, hunger's compass pointing forever toward morning. Somewhere a dog howls at stars, as false as any gnomon's promise. Little hands clutch your skirts like burrs, sticky with river clay and yesterday's honey dribble. When they buzz, a swarm of grubby-faced hornets, fingers tugging threads from your frayed hem. You swat at them, half-hearted, your palm grazing a crown of cowlicked hair. They've been at the barley again. Golden husks cling to their lashes like misplaced guilt. The pot belches steam, a sour note cutting through their chorus. You snatch a plump grain head from the dwindling sack. Its feathery spine tickles your calluses. When the barley dances, you mutter, twirling the stalk till seeds scatter like reluctant raindrops. They scramble knees, skidding on packed dirt, foraging for imaginary treasures. A village crone once swore peasant children played pottage judge with acorn caps and mud tasting, pretend stews with sticks for spoons. These brats prefer pelting each other with turnip tops, their games, as nourishing as the Lord's hollow taxes. You dip a finger into the simmering sludge, heat pricking your skin, and flick a droplet. 3 tongues dart out like pink minnows, catching nothing but air. Histories claim royal babas ate porridge with silver spoons. You lie watching their eyes widen at the word silver. One tugs her earlobe, a family tick, her brother's toes digging into ash-pocked earth. The truth, even Henry V's nursery gruel probably crusted the bowl same as yours. But let them dream of gilt-edged hunger, it sweetens the nothingness. The hearth coughs, a sputter of sparks nipping at your soles. You duck as a flying hazelnut shell grazes your temple, their aim sharpened by empty bellies. Enough. You bark, slamming the spoon so hard the pot shudders. Silence hangs brief as a mayfly's life before giggles erupt like bladderworts bursting. You tear a barley plume in two, its quill-like bristles trembling in your grip. Here, thrusting the stems at the ringleader, build a castle for your pea army. They scatter, straw crowns askew, to wage wars in the dust. Your knuckle brushes the pot's rim, a blistered metronome keeping time. Some scholars' scribbles claim medieval kitchens barred children for fear of vapors spoiling the broth. Yet here they are, their grubby miracles, turning your fire into a dragon's den, your ladle into a knight's doomed sword. The smallest one circles back, her smudged cheek pressed against your thigh. Sing the pot's song, she whispers, all traces of when dissolved in trust. You hum through clenched teeth, a tuneless drone, as she wraps grimy fingers around your stirring wrist. Outside, wind riffles through stolen barley fields, a whispered secret the children can't yet hear. You'll patch your skirt tonight again, stitching closed the holes their hope keeps tearing open. Let historians argue whether Hunger Games forged resilience or despair. Your answer simmers here, tied to a fading plume of grain. Snowdrops bow their weary heads, frost's teeth sinking into tender stems. You kneel, palms flat on soil that lied about spring, and exhale curses as white plumes. The onion's papery skin splits, milky shoots stretching toward weak light. They look like the ghostly fingers of drowned sailors, grasping at air that can't feed them. 3 days ago, you tucked it into a decaying log, wrapped in moss, like a pagan babe. Peasants once whispered secrets to sprouting bulbs, as if flattery could root spring in place. Grow fat, you'd murmured, knowing well the hunger gnawing your own ribs. Now its green tendrils mock you, too delicate for stew, too precious to waste. A 14th century ledger from Avignon details 53 springs, where frost devoured early crops, entire villages boiling bark by May. You imagine some long-dead clerk tallying your wilted snowdrops, now quill scratching through another failed column. The knife's edge gleams, its handle worn smooth by generations of similar choices. Historians still argue whether the Little Ice Age froze hope or just mud. Your blade hovers, casting a quivering shadow over the onion's pale throat. The children's laughter drifts from the riverbank, their bellies round with last autumn's lies. You peel a translucent layer, sweetness stinging your nostrils, and press it to your tongue. Flesh parts with a sigh, juice pooling in the crease of your palm. The earth groans beneath you, or is that your stomach? Frost crackles under your knees as you dig, 1 bulb for supper, 3 nubs buried where the soil still remembers warmth. Forgive me, you tell the remaining shoots, though farming gods disdain apologies delivered through chewing. Night falls, your teeth grinding fibrous strands into bitter pulp. Smoke curls from huts down the valley, others making the same calculation. You count each fibrous bite, 11, before swallowing the ache whole. The knife rests on the hearthstone, sticky with sap and self-reproach, its edge dulled by spring's betrayal. Hooves crack the morning's ice glaze, a sound like bones snapping under wagon wheels. You clutch the pot's rim, its meager broth still steaming lies about tomorrow's meal. Chainmail jingles, a familiar malice, as the taxman's shadow spills across your threshold. His gloves creak, black leather swallowing the winter light. You count 3 others behind him, farmers' sons conscripted into livery, their eyes avoiding your bare feet. The doomsday book might have recorded 11 chickens here once, but that was before the pox ate your hens. By order of the Lord Warden, he barks, flinging open your storage chest. His dagger probes grain sacks, piercing woven reeds to spill 8 wrinkled peas. They roll across packed earth, tiny green deserters fleeing the coming massacre. Rumor claims taxmen once ate silver flakes to detect lies their shit, glittering with truth. You watch his fingers, calloused and thick, dip into your salt jar. He licks a gray pinch, eyebrows rising at the brackish quality. Deficient, he declares, though his ledger shows no units for hope. The pot exhales a peppery sigh as he plunges in his ladle. Broth coats his red beard, a droplet clinging like parasitic amber. Historians still argue whether feudal levies starved villages or just pickled their rage. Your spoon, carved from an oak struck by lightning, vibrates in your trembling hand. He takes the salt pork first, that glistening scrap you'd kissed with time at dawn. Next, the barley scooped into his satchel until the burlap grin. Your knuckles whiten, the spoon's handle singing old warnings about severed hands. One conscript coughs, a teenage sound frayed at the edges. You recognize his mother's nose, the same that once shared turnip seeds during the Great Flood. His chainmail hangs too loose, swallowing collarbones sharp as scythe blades. The taxman grunts, pointing to the onion sprouts wilting on your windowsill. Levy on winter greens, he announces, plucking 3 shoots with surgical precision. Their roots dangle pale and vulnerable before vanishing into his belt pouch. 13th century priests wrote of peasants hiding grain in fake rat holes. You'd always laughed. Now your eyes dart to the loose hearthstone, where a fistful of barley quivers in its earthen womb. His boot heel grinds the exact spot as he turns, leaving your floor patterned with mud and menace. The pot gapes, its broth reduced to tepid whispers. You crouch, tongue lapping the wooden spoon, tasting iron, where your own teeth gnawed through restraint. Outside, a jay shrieks, its stolen nest glittering with strands of taxman's horsehair. They ride out, their laughter nipping at your goose-fleshed neck. You count their takings aloud, a bard's dirge for vanished sustenance. 4 onions, 2 measures of barley. 7 patches on your cloak, they deemed excess fabric. The hearth's last coal drowns in spit, your rage too frugal to waste kindling. Night sweeps in its cold palms, pressing your face into the empty pot. Somewhere a dog howls. Somewhere a lord belches. The arithmetic of hunger clicks its abacus beads, carrying over nothing into dawn's hollow column. Fever presses its thumb to your temple, a smith's branding iron masquerading as skin. The hearth flickers, 3 flames, where there should be one, as you claw through dried herbs, meant for better days. Chamomile petals cascade yellow dust, motes swirling like gilded gnats, before hitting broth thin as a liar's alibi. Your pinky nail scrapes ginger root, a sting cuts through cotton brain fog. Medieval abbeys hoarded ginger for plague fevers, though yours came cheap from a peddler's moldy satchel. Muddled mint leaves surrender their oils. You gag at the stench of chlorophyll and decay. 3 coughs rack your ribs. The pot shudders its surface, reflecting eyes too glassy to trust. The cat watches from the rafters, one ear torn from past battles. You lob a peppercorn at it, miss by a handspan, watch it roll into ashes. At least you're not tubercular, you mutter, ignoring how your voice cracks on the last syllable. Historians still argue whether Benedictine monks knew their cures worked, or just prayed harder than most. Birch bark joins the brew, peeled from a tree your grandfather planted. Your mother swore it cured winter lung rot, though she died spitting blood into a snowbank. 7 stirs counterclockwise, a peasant's charm against misfortune. But the spoon slips, splashing sludge onto your ankle. The burn feels distant, like reading about pain in someone else's diary. You hallucinate Cleopatra's barge, its perfumed sails billowing with myrrh smoke as your fingernail dissolves in the pot. Scholars claim Nile feasts featured roasted ibis, but your broth devours a beetle that strayed too close. The cat descends, sniffs the rim, and flicks its tail in feline judgment. Raven feathers float into view, whether real or imagined. You pluck one from the steam. 13-year-old, you would have written prayers with its quill. Now you stir bitter dregs. 4 heartbeats pass before you notice the feather melting, its veins curling like sinners in Hades. A voice that might be yours croons a lullaby about turnips and orphaned lambs. The pot gurgles, its surface alive with shapes, a knight's gauntlet, a stillborn lamb, your father's missing teeth. You sip directly from the rim, ignoring the scald, and taste tomorrow's regrets. Morning leaks through cracks gray light, dissecting your shivers. The fire's dead, its ashes sketching ghost coals on the hearth. You press your brow to the pot's belly, letting its mockery steam your cheeks. Somewhere an owl hoots, 2 notes, a question without an answer. The spoon lies abandoned, its handle chewed to splinters. As the last bubble bursts, the pot's breath fades, a last wisp curling toward the thatch, as your trembling hands fumble for the candle stub. Tallow oozes over your thumb, reeking of burnt mutton fat, and plops into the broth with a sizzle. You remember market day sermons praising Vatican beeswax, but your village survives on greasy sheep scraps rendered into light. 3 drips congeal on the surface, translucent islands in a murky sea. Your spoon digs through the mess, scraping up a clot of wax bonded to barley husks. Everyone knows Roman legions ate honeycomb straight from hives. You get a candle's snotty afterbirth instead. The first bite clings to your molars. Chewing feels like grinding a bishop's seal. Frost gnaws through your last goatskin, shivers jolt your arm. The ladle clatters against clay. Medieval nuns wrote recipes for poverty soups using candle ends, though none mention the aftertaste of despair. You gag, swallow anyway, feel the wax coat your gullet like a poorly greased cartwheel. The cat's tail brushes your shin, a rare moment of pity before it retches in the corner. Not hungry, you croak, watching wax bloom on your broth like pond scum. Historians still argue whether famine foods were acts of defiance or just proof hunger trumps pride. Your last candle gutters, its flame sketching shadow puppets on the wall. One resembles your brother, lost to a lord's press gang. Another, a cabbage stolen 3 winters back. You lick the stub grease and soot merging into a tang worse than bile. A church bell tolls in the distance, 7 miles away, but clear as a slap, reminding you of Advent fasts broken with moldy rye. The pottage cools, its surface hardening into a map of cracked riverbeds. You chip a piece with your nail, pop it in, let it melt like sinners' forgiveness. Neighbors swore tallow cured sore throats, but yours burns raw with every swallow. Your gut churns, a vat of live eels, as you force down another gummy mouthful. That stuffy scholar from Bruges once lectured on peasant alchemy, turning waste into survival. You'd throttle him with his own silk belt now. Stars blur overhead, or maybe it's your vision swimming as you slump against the hearth. The pot stares back, its belly stripped bare, mocking your resolve. Your tongue probes a wax lump wedged in your teeth, sweetness, phantom dancing on your nerves. Dawn arrives uninvited, gray light, revealing the cat licking wax from your abandoned bowl. You don't scold it, just curl tighter around the hollow in your gut. The last ember winks out, leaving the taste of candle smoke and stolen prayers on your lips. The lute's whine slices through your stupor. A traveler leans against your doorframe, fingers dancing across gut strings. His cloak reeks of wet dog, but his tunes clean as spring melt. You keep stirring, wooden spoon etching circles in rhythm with his picking. Historians still argue whether wandering minstrels were spies or just really bad at staying put. He nods at your pot, its emptiness echoing your gut, and launches into a ballad about barley queens. Ceres herself weeps at such devotion. He croons, plucking a high note that makes your cat's ears twitch. Medieval troubadours used catgut strings, a fact that explains both the squealing and your pet's sudden hiss. Your spoon taps the pot's rim, tink, 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 matching his cadence. The melody hooks deep, an earworm wriggling past your defenses. You recognize the tune from last summer's harvest dance, same notes. But he swapped lusty milkmaids for sturdy turnips. Smart move, safer to praise vegetables than a duke's cuckolded wife. He pockets your last withered carrot, without asking replaces it with a refrain about famine's bittersweet symphony. The lute's soundbox trembles against your wall, vibrations crawling up your spine. Your stirring arm slows, muscles syncing with the meter. 3 beats clockwise, 1 counter. Experts think half the Canterbury tales were stolen from peasant chants. Not that Chaucer ever thanked us. Rain starts needles of sound pricking the thatch. His voice drops, a conspiratorial growl, as he spins verses about a thieving fox and a drunken priest. You snort, spoon slipping, splattering dregs on your toe. The cat pounces, licking broth, with more enthusiasm than your tongue mustered. His final chord hangs, an overripe pear ready to drop, before silence swallows it whole. He departs as he came, a shadow blurring into the mist. The fire's dead, but his melody hums in your tendons, a phantom vibration, where the lute pressed against your stool. Your breath steadies, lifting the spoon in a mock toast to his back. The pot's scraped raw, yet your arm keeps circling, carving soundless tunes in stale air. Even hunger can't unmake this rhythm, the stubborn pulse of a ballad that outlives its thief. The spoon's curve fits your palm like a lover's jaw, cold now, its last gift pooled thick at the bottom. Ashes drift down, a lazy snowfall of spent oak and regret, coating the pot's scabbed interior. Your tongue swipes the wood, tasting char and pine resin, the ghost of a meal that barely filled your thumbprint. Dawn stains the hut's eastern wall streaks of pomegranate and bile. You scrape the pot's flank, nails catching in its pockmarks, and wonder if Cleopatra's jeweled cups felt this rough under royal lips. Experts found barley grains in Egyptian king tombs, poverty's offering to the afterlife's buffet. Your empty vessel coughs up nothing, a dry rattle that echoes your ribs. The cat's gone off to lick some lord's discarded trout bones, but its stale piss still perfumes the threshold. You kick dirt over the stain, your heel grinding graffiti into the packed earth. Rain will wash it clean, just like it washes blood from castle cobblestones, leaving only rust-colored whispers. Your mother's voice coils up from the ashes. Waste not, even as you dump cold dregs onto the compost heap. Rotting parsnip skins embrace the sludge, a soggy reunion of what couldn't be chewed. Historians still argue whether peasants ate mold or worshipped it, but your guts know the truth. Snow creeps across the field, skeletal fingers clawing at last autumn's stubble. You squat, pressing a palm to frozen soil, and imagine roots tunneling beneath. Someone's going to dig up your midden pile someday. Praise your sustainable practices while gagging on your preserved farts. The thought almost makes you grin. Night arrives unbidden, a thief slipping its fingers through the thatch. You curl beside the dead hearth, back against the pot's curved belly, its iron rim biting your spine. Stars blink through smoke holes, Viking compasses, pilgrims, dead ancestors' campfires. Take your pick. Your breath fogs the air, each exhale a fleeting ghost. The last ember dies mid-wink, darkness pooling in your eye sockets. You dream of soups that never thin, of ladles dipping into bottomless cauldrons. But wake to the pot's yawn, empty and endless. Soil shifts beneath you, patient, always patient, as your eyelids sag shut. The pot keeps watch, its cracked mouth forming the same silent words it learned from the earth. Again, 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 the spoon rests, blunted silver tongue pressed to clay lips, as shadows stretch long across the floor. Embers exhale their final warmth, ash settling in the pot's grooves like wrinkles on a widow's hand. You trace its belly, once round with promise, now hollow as a plucked bird's ribcage. Darkness wraps around you, not a shroud, but a heavy wool blanket, itchy yet familiar. Wind hums through the hut's cracks. The same tune the pot croons when flames lick its base. Your breath slows, matching the rhythm of roots pushing through black earth below. Someone's cooking smoke will rise tomorrow, carrot tops and yesterday's crusts, in a village 3 hills over. The pot knows this, has known it since the first flame danced beneath its curves. Its cracks hold stories older than castles, older than empires, older than the names we give the stars. You sink into the dirt floor, grit cradling your hip bone as the pot murmurs against your spine. Not a lullaby, not a dirge, just the low thrum of waiting. Dawn will come, and with it, water drawn from icy wells, knuckles scraping against the bucket's rough rope. But here now the world shrinks to this. The pot's patient arc, your chapped palms, the slow creep of starlight. Let your shoulders soften, the whey broth surrenders to the spoon's tilt. No feasts here, no kings, just the quiet pact between hunger and what remains. The pot's last whisper feathers your eyelids, a hum from the iron in its veins. Again it sighs, but softer now, a mother soothing a colicky babe. Your dreams blur with steam, with damp soil, with hands, countless hands, that polished this clay smooth. Sleep comes like damp dough rising, swelling to fill every hollow. The pot keeps vigil, its silence deeper than cellars, older than oaks. Together you drift, anchored not by fullness, but by the ache that binds all empty things. Again breathes the dark, and you let it.